call the meeting to order. Roll call.
President Byrne,
Here.
trustees Hebda, Schultz. Here. Marport,
Here.
Cook,
Here.
Oppenheim, Takaoka.
Here.
Is that it? Okay, we have a quorum present. Would everybody please stand for the Pledge of Allegiance? I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Okay, any citizens wish to address the board on anything other than what's on committee of the whole? Okay. First item is Assistant Village Manager Joe Carey, Oktoberfest and Hurricane Relief, 2017 Lake County All Natural Hazards Mitigation Plan.
Thank you, Your Honor. On September 23rd, Vernon Hills held the 13th annual Oktoberfest celebration. Unfortunately, we had 90-degree weather, so the warm summer really kind of led to reduced crowds. But those that attended did remark that it was a great event. We were able to have all the pumpkins up, ran out until about 4:30 or so. So everybody seemed to get their fill and had a great time with the crafts and other events. A big thank you goes to the Park District, the Police Department, Public Works, and the Summer Celebration Committee members, and really all the volunteers who helped make this event a success. Monica Lundeen deserves a special recognition for her long hours and dedication to this event. Without her, it really wouldn't be the event that it is today. Lastly, a special thanks to the board who have continued to sponsor and support this great community event, and it really wouldn't be the event it is without the continued support that you've provided over the years. As a reminder, we are doing a fundraiser for the American Red Cross for hurricane relief. We are still accepting donations and will until next week. So if there are individuals still wishing to donate, we do have buckets at the front counter at Village Hall for individuals to donate.
Okay. All right, Finance Director.
Oh, Your Honor, I'm sorry.
Oh, sorry.
One other item.
Lake County All Natural Hazards Mitigation, okay.
Under the consent agenda this evening is Resolution 2017-066, which adopts the 2017 Lake County All Natural Hazards Mitigation Plan. This was first approved in 2006 and subsequently amended. It's already been approved by the Illinois Emergency Management Agency as well as the Federal Emergency Management Agency. And what approval of this plan does is it allows municipalities to be eligible for hazard mitigation grant funds. It's important to recognize that this doesn't involve disaster relief funds. This is for grant funds that would be eligible through FEMA, and this would be for planning or projects, including the evaluation of critical facilities. This would be for floodplain property acquisitions, or as an example, a construction of a tornado shelter at a senior care facility or something like that. This plan is required to be adopted every 5 years, and Lake County has indicated that this needs to be adopted by November 14th of this year. And this is on the consent agenda again.
Okay. All right. Nikki, Finance Director.
Thank you, Your Honor.
Larson.
Included on the omnibus this evening are Ordinance 2017-109 and Resolution 2017-067, which update the existing village code and purchasing procedures that ensure they are consistent with compiled statutes. On August 25th, 2017, the governor signed Public Act 100-0338 into law, which increases the base amount that requires for bidding from $20,000 to $25,000 for public improvement or maintenance of public property. There are two sections of the village code that are affected by this change. Both sections are included in Article 1 of Chapter 2, which governs the general administration of the village. Section 2-2 sets bidding requirements for any general expenses that would not otherwise be covered by special assessment or special purpose taxation, which is proposed to be amended to be raised to the bidding limit of $25,000 in accordance with compiled statutes. Section 2-165 sets duties and responsibilities of the village manager, which include the supervision of the purchase of all materials and supplies and equipment that have been included in the budget. This is also proposed to be amended to be $25,000. Resolution 2017-067 amends the existing administrative procedures that have been established to allow for an administrative invoice approval, and this threshold would also be raised from $20,000 to $25,000. As the board may recall, a formal procedure was previously approved in 2016 to allow for the manager to release certain payments under the amount of $20,000 when there's a gap between meetings of 3 weeks or more. This allows us to continue to pay bills when we have one meeting a month, and then that bill approval list then comes before the board for ratification at the next meeting. If ordinance 2017-109 and resolution 2017-067 are approved, the Finance Department anticipates that a new purchasing policy reflecting these changes and updating our existing procedures will be presented as part of the budget process.
Any staff members have any comments on this change? Is everybody comfortable with it? Dave? Okay. All right. Any questions from the board? Okay. All right. Already lost my spot. Okay. All right, National Coffee with a Cap. Chief Crease.
Thank you, Your Honor. Just want to remind the community, they may have seen the information boards around town or otherwise advertised that tomorrow is National Coffee with a Cop Day. This is an event sponsored by McDonald's. At our McDonald's at 21 and 60, McDonald's will be offering free cups of coffee between 8 a.m. and 10 a.m. I'll be there, as will Deputy Chief Davies and several other officers. The idea is it's just an opportunity for members of the public to have a cup of coffee and have a chat with the cop. So we would love to have anyone stop by and visit. So
Okay, sounds exciting.
it's free coffee. It's pretty exciting.
Okay. All righty. Dave Brown, Public Works Director.
Thank you very much. I wanted to update the board a little bit about last year's snow and ice control and discuss how we're going to approach this year. So sorry to bring up snow, but we do need to prepare for it. So last year, 2016, 2017, you may recall, pretty mild winter all in all. Our average is usually around 35 inches of snow. We actually had 29.35 inches of snow, so we weren't too far from the average. We had 2 months that we had no measurable snow. So January and February, that's record-breaking. 133 years of record keeping, we've never matched that same stat. So remarkable year. We did have a number of very large snowplow events. So, we had one that was 5.5 inches, one that was 6.75 inches, another one 1.5 inch, 3 inches, and then we had the lull period. Then in March, we had another 4 inches and then closed out the season with 7.5 inches. So we were called out only 15 times for salting and plowing operations. But when we were called out, it was a substantial amount of snow to push. So wanted to share that with the board. And really where we're headed is on the agenda, consent agenda ordinance 2017-112. We have a contract for the largest services that we have, which is the cul-de-sacs. And then we will be bringing back before the village board other smaller contracts. We work with a number of the homeowners associations to try to determine who is plowing their driveways, and then we try to reach out to them and see if we can have something that's comparable to the pricing that the village would do. Then we only have one person addressing that, and the timing as far as someone pushing snow into the road or us pushing snow into the driveways, the choreography is much better. So A number of homeowners associations have changed who their contractor is, so we've just found that out, so we're in contact with them. So at a future board meeting, we'll bring that back. But in terms of the one that's on the consent agenda is the James Martin Associates contracts for the cul-de-sacs, and it's included in your board packet. Really, the largest change in the contract is we have changed things last year, and it was based on service. It wasn't necessarily the contractor, but it was the amount of time it took them to address snowfalls. So instead of having having 8 vehicles, they are using 11 vehicles. They started to do that last year. So that is something we want them to continue to do. We think the response time is certainly better. So that's the major change within this contract. Second part of the contract is also for the metro station. They do help us with the metro station. We're recommending approval of ordinance 2017-112.
Yeah, okay. Any comments or questions from the board on this? I got one, and I don't know how we, it's outside of our purview, but with the senior housing in town, is there a way to, talk to their, snow removal contracts and ice control guys
Okay.
to do something between the cars?
Okay.
Because Victory Center, they let it be known one afternoon during the election cycle, but not only that, I'm just saying there's other people that, the Brookdales of the world, right? We got 2 of those, and I don't know how you reach out to them, to.
Well, we certainly can reach out to them, find out who they're using for
Yeah.
a contractor, and
Because I'm sure a lot of people don't move the cars. I mean, and it's, probably an inherent problem,
it is a very big problem trying to work around the cars, absolutely.
Yeah. Well, unless they work something, well, yeah, forget it. I'm not gonna,
We have a lot of choreography that we do with the police department because they have their vehicles in the way. We work through it, and we're able to move the vehicles, plow, and then have the vehicles return.
right,
Obviously, a little more difficult at the Victory Center and
Right.
senior housing.
but, yeah, and then, whatever happened to the yield sign or the stop sign over there?
We did work through as far as adding the crossing, the pedestrian crossing, if that's what you're talking about. At Phillip.
Okay,
yeah.
all right, well, all right, but if, that snow removal thing, again, Doctor, how you doing?
Hey there.
There you
Sorry
go.
I'm late, by the way. So how does this cost compare to the prior few years?
So based on the contract that we used for 11 vehicles last year, it's each year what they're proposing to do is approximately a 1.2% increase.
Is that pretty standard?
Pretty standard. I've seen increases previously of 2% and in that range, so I think 1.2% is fair.
And what's the retainer and also that's paid, period?
Sure. So if we have no snowfall, any company is going to charge because they have to have X amount of vehicles available and tying up staff. So what they ask for is a $40,000 retainer. If there's no snow, they actually get that $40,000. We've yet to have that. So it's 2 installments, $20,000, and then another $20,000. And then as the snowfall occurs, then depending if they're plowing on a weekend or weekday, then they have pricing in the contract, and we deduct that from the $40,000. Should they exceed the $40,000, which is standard that they will, we still have money to accommodate that, but the bare bones minimum is the $40,000
Who else
that they
do
will
we have
earn.
an agreement with for that? Anybody else, or is it just them?
Sure, so we have agreements with, let's see, as of last year, and we'll update you as far as who ultimately we contract with
Yeah.
this year. The Acres Group, Apex Landscaping, Aero Shop, Aspen Landscapes, Brightview, Schroeder and Schroeder, And also Vernon Township helps support us.
Yeah, that's fine.
And I just wanted to remind, this is a 3-year contract.
Right. Okay. All right. Let's see. All right. Omnibus vote agenda, is there a motion to approve items A through N?
So made. Second.
Motion is second. Roll call.
Trustees Schultz,
Aye.
Markwart,
Aye.
Cook,
Aye.
Oppenheim,
Aye.
Takaoka,
Aye.
Hebda.
Okay, motion carries. All right, approval of village board meeting minutes of September 19th, 2017.
Motion to approve.
Second.
Second. Motion is second. Comments, questions, corrections, deletions? If none, roll call.
Trustees Markwart,
Aye.
Cook,
Aye.
Oppenheim,
Aye.
Takaoka,
Aye.
Hebda, Schultz.
Aye.
Okay, any new business communication to come before the board? Okay, if not, make a motion to adjourn the board meeting and go into committee of the whole, and we're not going to closed session.
So made.
Motion,
Second.
second, roll call.
Trustees Cook,
Aye.
Oppenheim,
Aye.
Takaoka,
Aye.
Hebda, Schultz,
Aye.
Markwart.
Aye.
Motion carries. I'd like to call the committee of the whole meeting to order. First item is approve of committee of the whole meeting minutes of September 19th, 2017.
Motion to approve? Second.
Motion is second. Comments, questions, deletions, corrections? If none, roll call.
Trustees Oppenheim,
Aye.
Takaoka,
Aye.
Hebda, Schultz,
Aye.
Markwart,
Aye.
Cook.
Aye.
Motion carries. First item, Taxman Corporation requests for TIF assistance at 45 and 21, which is the town center project. And this deals with either the Commons 2, that's the lot, or, go ahead. Yeah, you want to say anything, Joe, before side speaks? You don't have, you identify yourself.
First, I want to thank you for accommodating me. I was sorry I couldn't make it to the last meeting. Unfortunately, I've had some health problems that have been very limiting, and being able to appear before you and then move on is rather important to me. I was reflecting tonight as Margie drove me out here. I'm not very good at driving at night right now, but it's really been a long journey. Started way back at the Half Day Inn, the only, I think it was the only tavern in Lake County with a 4 o'clock license. And at one time I thought you could meet your budget by just parking a cop car out there at about 3 o'clock in the morning and keep issuing tickets. But
They were active at times.
But it's really been I think, when I look back on it, it's been a productive journey for both the village and ourselves. We have one last piece to develop. It's part of what was commonly called the Opus development, Fort Clinton. We stepped into this, the remaining 2 pieces, about 1.5 years ago now. The village board accommodated us by increasing the density of the property we were talking about from then approved 66 units to 80 units. Unfortunately, the public process, which I respect totally, and I think it's very important, delayed this project just enough, time-wise, to kind of take us out of the loop. That if somebody wanted, in my opinion, to talk about the next Big Short, you're seeing it being developed at 60 and 21. You're seeing it being developed at Aptekissick and 21 and numerous other suburban areas. the apartment rental market has been, for the last 8 years, a developer's dream. Just as retail supermarkets and retail shopping centers were, which was my business for 35 years. That's quickly coming to an end. We're seeing it already, and we have a very strong feeling that while we still propose to build those 80 units, I would say to a great extent that the train has left the station. We're getting strong indications of that in terms of financing. While financing costs have started to escalate dramatically, equity requirements have been dramatically increased. And with that, because of this demand, pricing of materials and labor is going off the charts. So you're now caught in a squeeze between costs and the fact that rents have probably peaked out. You drive around to any of the new suburban apartments, you're going to see far more rental units available than you've seen ever before. So while we are still committed, we're kind of on our last leg as to whether or not we're going to be able to pull this off. We clearly am not going to be able to do it without some TIF assistance. In anticipation of this problem, and by the way, just to give you a frame of reference, at the end of November, that gives us a little less than 2 months, unless we have a firm commitment for both financing and a construction price that we can live with, we will not build this 80 units. Because number one, we do not want to build a failure in this community. We've had a pretty good record over the years since we started at Half Day Road. What we've built and developed has been successful. It's been good for the village, been good for us. We don't want to build a failure. So I'm telling you, while we're asking for a commitment of your support, I'm telling you now that unless things start to loosen up a little bit, we probably won't build it. But what we have done, and it has not been presented through your process, we looked at this site and said, if you can't build an apartment building on it, what can you do with it? We have actually retained the same architectural group that designed the latest townhouses in that area and have developed an 18-unit plan where we can build 18 townhouses on that site. Same type of style, fits into the community. It probably better meets the objections of the people who were very vocal here through many meetings, which, by the way, I don't know if you knew, but the one who was most vocal turned out to be a physical therapist that actually rehabbed me. He forgot who I was, rehabbed me some 25 years ago when I blew up my knee.
That had potential to be bigger than the McGregor, who's Mayweather pay-per-view.
Yeah, that was a tough night. I think your predecessor, Chief, actually wanted to know whether or not I was packing that night because he walked me to my car and I said, no, I'm okay. But the fact is that we don't want to see that thing just there and me riding a John Deere tractor cutting the lawn.
Right.
We believe that if we can't get this done as an 80-unit building, we can, and we will submit through the regular process, a review of a potential 18 townhouse. That will also require some subsidy, but much less, because of the nature of the development. It's probably, it's less than half. And it's really only to deal with extraordinary site development costs that really occurred over the process when those buildings were originally built. A lot of dirt was just shoved over here because it was convenient to do at that time. So it's kind of a funny position for me to stand here before you and say, we'd like to have a commitment on this 80-unit building, which we are asking for. But I want to be forthright with you, because I believe that we have one last opportunity to do this building. We're working with a publicly traded company where we would basically subordinate our interest to allow them to come in and do it. And they promised me that we would have a firm commitment, one way or the other, by the end of November. That's why I put this in front. Other than that, I can't tell you much else. Joe Carey has all the materials that were developed for this request. We ask you to seriously consider it. We know that this is not a TIF district that you want to use as your example of a great TIF district. It's been a struggle for the village. We know that this development has been delayed year after year after year, never was really fully developed as it was anticipated. We think we did our portion of it pretty quickly and on time, and we'd like to finish it out. We think that it's important to close this out and to have something positive built there. So if we are relegated to doing the much smaller project, it'll be very costly to us, frankly, but, you know, we're going to do it because that needs to be finished. It can't just be left there as a blank.
By your agreement with Opus, when could you start selling the
Well-
townhomes?
I'm not concerned about my agreement with Opus. And as you know, Mr. President, that I'm very much of a hands-on guy and a handshake guy. I have learned that the fractured condominium building, which was sitting for years with 6 sold units, the rest of the units were rented, at Properties has now sold out the building. Now,
Okay,
I had the head of At Properties in our office today. That is Wong.
that's who owns it now?
Yeah, no, they don't own it. They're strictly the.
Management
They
company.
were strictly the brokers.
Okay,
His point to me was, he says, at the price per square foot that we were able to offer those units, we were able to sell them off. You could not build a building today and sell anywhere near that price per square foot and have any kind of return at all. But what it does show that there is a significant demand for for-sale housing that is really not being met. I mean, the shift was so dramatic to rental that everybody forgot about, you know, for-sale housing in the true sense, new for-sale. Now, Lexington built those townhouses, and they sold them out.
right.
And they sold them out very quickly, and frankly, at accelerating prices. So we're comfortable if we have to go to the fallback position. We have the architectural team in place. It's something size-wise that we can do in-house. We don't have to rely upon anybody else. We need a small bit of assistance on some of the extraordinary site work. Other than that, we'd be ready to go. But I still think that the right thing to do, if we can do it, is to build that 80 units on that site. Fits, it makes sense, and we're asking you to seriously consider some help.
Yeah, okay. Trustee Schultz.
I'm more in favor of the 18 units than going forward with the high-rise.
Okay.
We had a lot of difficulties getting to a point where everybody was reasonably comfortable. I think this would be a better fit. Plus, as you said, it's probably a better fit for the marketplace as the marketplace morphs over the next year or two.
Right?
With that being said, if there's any TIF monies given, I'd like it to be the minimum amount, and I'd like to see where your numbers are so that we can look at the minimum amount. Because, you know, yeah, it's going to be less, but we're going to get less in revenue because the overall project is going to have a lower overall value,
Right.
assessed value. The other thing is you own that little parking lot. What's the status of that? I'd like that to kind of
I would be
become,
happy to address it because I spoke to a general contractor this morning.
and that's not the right answer.
Well, I'm not going to give you everything you want to hear because you've known me long enough to know that you may not like what I have to say, but what I say I'll deliver. We're going to build a 5,100 square foot building on that site, which is what it's zoned for. And it'll be a building that does not require action by this board. It'll be a matter of proper design within the limitations of what it's zoned for. I've been carrying it for a long time. A big part of that was, at one time, a thought that perhaps the village wanted to control that site, and I made that available, as John Kalmar would tell you, to the village. It was never acted upon, so I've really carried it. I think a 5,100 square foot.
What's its current utilization level?
Well, currently it's been barricaded off, so it hasn't been able to be utilized as its existing parking
So,
lot.
so we've gotten through really the strongest part of the summer months where the highest level of activity is?
We've actually cordoned it off so it's not being used at all.
Yeah.
There's no parking, and to be frank with you, we know all the
We've been able to
tenants.
use the Gilardi space or Philly G's space, which is open to the public, as a sufficient buffer.
I mean, we have heard from the retailers there that they have been in need of that parking. They have been utilizing it, so that is something that they have had a sense of frustration that it has not been able to be utilized.
I mean, size piece.
Yes.
Yeah, well, we didn't have a real discussion on that though this summer.
No.
Okay, well,
I mean, that clearly is
Yeah.
that's clearly up to the board. I frankly, as a private owner,
Yeah.
have to address the fact that nothing's really been done to make it a quote public parking. It has been approved as 5,100 square feet. I called the contractors today to get some pricing, and we're prepared to get in the ground very quickly and build a one-story, attractive 5,100 square foot building.
so it'd be office?
It would be multi-tenanted. My guess would be it will be a service type of business in that building, whether it's physical therapy or that type of thing. That will be the nature of what.
Well, you know what you need dentists, and because they never
Well,
move.
we've got a very successful dentist, as you know, there, and,
Up on your second floor?
no, I'm talking right on Old Half Day Road, right at 45. He's in that strip. He's been there from the beginning. Very successful, and candidly,
He's already there.
we would not we would not put anybody in that building that would be in conflict with him, even though we don't have any
Yeah,
legal
yeah, yeah,
obligation.
okay.
But
So
but
how
we are
many-
going to go ahead, and unless the village wants to own it, that's up to you guys. I can't tell you what to do.
What is
with
it? Is it an acre?
I'm not sure. Do you know what it is, Marge? 3/4? Yeah. I mean, it's there, it's fully paved, I mean, and it really is not a difficult project in the sense of building a spec 5,100 square foot building.
Maybe somebody wants to build a nice house there.
Well, I don't want
I didn't mean for us to get sidetracked.
Oh, that's okay.
So, getting back to the point at hand, I mean, I'm in favor of the 18 units versus the tower. I'd like it to be the minimum amount we can,
It is, we have not done the formal numbers, but I have done the back of the envelope, and I'm telling you that
we
it
need to
is
get a little sharper.
much more attractive, both in terms of
Understood.
time and cost, than trying to do the tower at this point.
But I did find an electric pencil sharpener in my wife's desk that she hadn't used, so
We'll
I'll
try our
let you
best.
borrow it to sharpen your pencils.
Okay.
Well, we've been sharpening this one for years.
Been a lot of
I mean,
years.
I know it sounds good, but I don't know if there's, too much fat left on the bone,
Not much.
Not much. Okay. Because everybody's got the pay, their summaries in front of you as far as what we think we can do, and this would be on a pay-as-you-go basis.
Correct.
Right. But the fly in the ointment, as far as I'm concerned, is, we're still not paying down, the principal. And when is that gonna start, do you think, Nikki?
The actual principal, we're starting to pay it down. Let me see that.
Because we only got to what, 2023?
Correct.
Right.
All of the outstanding debt has been refinanced to general obligation debt, and it's all at rates of 3% and below.
Right.
Let me just check here.
Wasn't there some bond at 1.9 or something like that? Right.
There's an old bond like that.
Yeah, well, it's kind of immaterial because of where's the cash flow coming, and okay, this is gonna take no matter what you do, how much time to get on the tax rolls, and we're gonna be 3 years out, you know, potentially.
There's no
In
question
terms-
about it. This
Right.
is a
And it's not,
project.
yeah, it's not your fault, believe me.
In terms of principal alone, this TIF has $14.1 million outstanding. If you add in interest, we get closer to $16.3 million. So the way that the TIF district is structured right now, assuming that we have continued slow growth in the EAV, there will be some positive years and there will be some negative years depending on the debt structure. And that is with the refinanced kind of smoothing from
Well,
what
the
was
reality
originally
is
issued.
too, though, on the 80-unit building versus 17, 18, whatever townhomes, the obvious increment is about double.
With the construction of townhomes on this
Oh, yeah,
parcel in
no,
question?
no question about it. It's like, at some point, though, do we have to, you know, talk about an extension?
Well, yeah.
Well, I mean, to be realistic, you
The,
know,
any extension of the TIF would require state legislation to pass.
I know that.
And so that's where it's just,
Well, okay.
it's unlikely that the state would approve such a thing based off of the recent headlines that have been done as relates to Chicago TIFs that have been involving Navy Pier and how they've been distributing those
Well,
funds.
you know, their tips are like a different universe than this one. Don't
They
you
are.
think? I
It's
mean,
the same legislatures that are
yeah,
reviewing it
okay.
though.
Well, you know, I would think our chances are a little better. That, just for those that, you know, haven't sat here that long, you could take it out to 35 years.
But it requires
But, you know, what?
legislation. There's no money.
Well, yeah, I mean, that's, the bottom line is that, you know,
Maybe,
it's,
maybe I can make the decision a little bit easier. Rather than asking you tonight to make a commitment on the requested TIF, maybe the better approach might be for us to take the plan we've developed for the 18 units, take it to staff, get staff's comments, see where we're at as to whether our concept meets the requirements that staff would require, both in
is
terms.
there any request for variance on
I
the
don't
number of
think so. I
units?
think it's basically, I think it could fly right on its own. The same architect that did the other townhouses did this plan for us.
Right.
But maybe we should just take it through a read with the staff, see where we come out. If it looks like it's a fairly clean situation, and you're more comfortable as a board in our going forward with that smaller project, then we'll focus on that, come back to you in a month and say, here's what we've got, here's the minimum we need, and we can focus on moving it forward. I'm okay with that.
Well, and what do we think the student count would be, you know, out of the 18 units versus the 80?
Let me tell you,
Do we have any,
well, I have some indication in talking to the brokers that sold out the existing building. I was somewhat surprised when they pointed out to me that the vast majority of their buyers in that building were empty nesters.
yeah, for the townhomes?
Well, no, I'm talking about the sellout now of the
Oh, the
condominium
condos.
tower.
Yeah, yeah.
I mean, I really did expect, those units are large condominium units as we know them today, square footage wise, and I thought there would be a strong pull in terms of Stevenson High School being the high school that served that district. I don't think there were that many students actually in that townhouse, the last townhouse build-out. That does not appear to be that much of an impact.
Trustee,
But historically, that's been relatively true, going back to just
Yeah,
the Red Top neighborhood in Libertyville, which
Yeah.
at that time was new, high-end
yeah.
condo, and it was very low on student
Yes, I
size.
think the
do you
same,
think about
I think the
Amity?
same is true
Very low.
as it relates to the townhouses that were just recently built.
Yeah.
Those are not, for whatever reason, they don't seem to be attracting students as that's.
I think your
What is the-
80-unit building would attract more students, and I've got some information from people that work up at AbbVie,
AbbVie, yeah.
that they have a number of renters because of the Stevenson. They brought them here from other locales,
Yep.
and they rented in your Commons building.
Right.
And so I think an apartment building would have a higher level of students per unit or whatever than a condo building would, than potentially what the townhouse
The
impact
other
would
thing I
be.
want to point out to the board is part of the success of the new townhouses that were built there was that the developer was very sensitive to price point. And those units started out right at $365,000. And I think they topped out the last four were like $415 in that range. You can go all around metropolitan Chicago, and it's hard to find new construction housing.
Right.
Where you have 3 bedrooms for $400,000 or less. That market, nobody's really dealing with. And that's why I think we have a much better chance of just going forward and getting it done.
You know, stepping away from the curb on the 80 units versus the 18 townhomes, you know, you got to look at what the pricing is down at Pace Realty, because you get a lot of kids living in those units that go to Stevenson High School. You know, just got to drive down there one day when the bus is unloading, and you know, it's a lot of kids. Well, no, yeah, and we should. You know, because the price points on your places would be, what would the one-bedroom start at in the apartments?
I don't, frankly, I'm not up to date on it myself.
Something in the $1,400 range?
Probably more than that.
Right. And so that's a $500 a month difference than down on Westmoreland.
Yeah.
You know, so again, but in essence, you know, I think we still got to really look harder at, you know, if we can get some kind of an extension. You got to take a flat 35 years, or can you say, hey, we got a deal cut with our TIF district members, and you do it in certain increments?
Well, I really appreciate
know.
your understanding that I want to talk very openly.
Yeah.
This is a relationship.
I'm
I
talking
feel-
open too. It's
And
a
I think
TIF district's
if,
got 5 years in it.
If we can pull off the 18 units and it works for both sides, one of the other positives is timing, because if we are able to take it through staff without any serious comments or changes, we're dealing with an architectural firm that just finished the project
Right.
there. The architect owns those plans, the developer does not. Okay, we can take those same units and replicate them right here. And it just, to me, in looking at the site, it feels better. It feels like a safer bet for everybody.
Okay, why don't we start at this end, just poll.
Fine.
Trustee
Sure.
Takayoko, do you want
Yeah,
80,
I have some
18?
questions for Mr. Taxman, if that's okay. I'm a new trustee here in Vernon Hills since May 5th, but actually was in the meetings when you came in here looking for the, you know, the ordinance change to go from 66 to 80. You said you needed 66 to 80 to make it work. I'm assuming from a financing perspective, ROI, I get that. An existing TIF with, you know, a loan of $670K still in existence, you know, here in Vernon Hills. And then, you know, then I see these numbers, $1 million, you know, 1.05 million for 80 units. You know, Thousand Oaks, 336 units they built, right? Those are rental units. You know, I don't think they requested a TIF, you know, for their development. That's a huge development. 697,000, are these firm numbers? Do you just,
697,000?
for the 18 row homes, do you lose money by, if you don't get this
Okay.
subsidy
all,
from the village?
Hold, before I respond to that,
Okay.
did we make a formal request for 600,000 for the plan?
It was,
He
the
needs to
request
come
was
up
for
to the microphone.
697,000 for the 18 townhomes was
Right.
the,
I'm glad you raised the point, because
Sure.
the,
I'm
no,
again getting in on this.
in many respects, I'm as new to that as you are.
Sure.
on this, but I can assure you that our request is going to be less for those units. I've already done some analysis, and we will be more than likely significantly lower than that.
Okay. What about what we can, you know, because to me, this 670,000 needs to be addressed first and foremost as a village first. And if anything perhaps were to be, you know, available for us to discuss, then I think, maybe can you back into that number? Because to me, that sticks out, again, not being an expert here, but I know we got 670K, a TIF expiration of 2023. That would be my position on this first. And to the village board members here, make sure that the 670K gets addressed first, and then we go from there to see what we could do to help, perhaps subsidize the situation for yourself.
Okay.
And again, if you don't get any subsidy, do you lose money? Is the project you just lose money? Is that what we're looking at here, or unable to get financing for the project? So, I mean, just so I understand.
We can't, with the reason that there will be if we do 18 units, the only reason that we would need TIF assistance is we have some extraordinary site development costs. If we didn't have that issue, I would make 0 requests. But there's an issue that relates to almost $30,000 to $40,000 additional per unit in site development costs. And that was really caused when Opus built their original tower and the original townhouses. There was a tremendous amount of earthwork that should have been hauled off-site, which was not. It was just put on this particular pad as a holding area. What I can commit to you, because I don't want to do hard numbers until we do our full budget, we will come to you with the minimum request possible that allows us to build the property. That's all I can give you, because I don't have the numbers in front of me today on the hard cost of those units. That's what we have to bid out, which we will do. If the board is saying to us that the preference from the board's point of view, irrespective of TIF at this point, is that we do the 18 units and get it done, then that's what we're going to go back and work on.
Yeah, and the 18 units could be built for what, about 5.5 million?
Whatever it is, it's a number that we know we can cover
Right.
on our own lines without going into a separate mortgage.
Where the 80-unit condo building is about
It's off
20
the
20 million, right?
Yeah, it's actually, our costs on it was 22,
Right.
22.5.
Right, right. Okay, well, yeah, that's fine. Mike?
Yeah. Well, again, just one last thing then. So I would ask Nikki, you could come up with some numbers based upon having the $670,000 loan addressed, paid off, and would there be any?
In terms of a repayment?
Yeah.
We could come up with a repayment schedule. The tricky part right now is that the way that the TIF district is structured right now, the increment that is projected to come in is projected to pay off the debt. And there's some years that are negative, there's some years that are positive, and if we do nothing, we anticipate having about 100,000 left over.
Okay.
But that does not include paying back the 670. Now, with the construction of the recent Port Clinton townhomes, that EAV will rise and that will help repay the loan in the long term.
Okay.
But the timing of that would be tricky. So what we would need to do is pay that off a little bit each year to make sure we're covering our debt service.
So any subsidy given would sort of compound or add on to what we currently, our current
True.
liability.
True, but that would also be offset by an
Right.
increase in increment by the building, because any building that is constructed in the TIF district will add value, and
Sure,
the
I
EAV
get-
will increase the increment as well.
Well, as of 2023, the 15 million will be reduced to what?
It will be paid off.
In
It-
5 years?
It needs to be paid, I'm sorry, I apologize, because this was refinanced into GO bonds, so it will be paid down to, it'll be paid off in 2034. So,
2034.
correct. It's been refinanced.
That's the refi, yeah.
That was the last refinancing was done
Okay.
in 2015.
Okay. All right. Mike, Marquardt?
I would also take a look at townhomes. The thing is that it's like digging in the well, it's dry. And we're just paying on it right now. So any money that we give toward you to help you with your building I would say would hurt us. So we do have to take a long look, but again, everything is, I'd like to take a look at the plans when you come back for the.
Trustee Markwork, I think you know, as well as everybody else sitting on this board, this building, had we not had some matters that interfered with our ability to go forward, this building probably would have been built by now.
Probably would have
we
built
just-
5 years ago.
And so we were just,
Yeah.
some of it we just couldn't control.
Timing is definitely a factor, and, yeah, it hurts when it lingers.
Believe me, I understand that hurt very well.
Trustee Cook.
I'm in favor of going forward with the townhome idea and get the number down as low as we can.
We will do that.
The one difference between something like the Oaks and is the nature of the TIF district. That's kind of what makes it different in terms of the subsidy for certain infrastructure and that. And so, yeah, I would like to see us go that direction because we just can't afford the other.
Well, that's why I'm here, because I wanted
Yeah,
to let you
okay.
know we recognize the same issues.
We already heard from trustee Schultz, so trustee Oppenheim.
Well, I like trustee Takaoka commented, I'd like to see some more of the data before I'd be willing to commit to going forward to either of them, but probably more likely to go forward with the lower cost townhomes, if anything. I guess to comment on your earlier point, right now, it's just sort of an open field, correct? So
It's got a turf cover.
it's got a turf cover, right? So, I mean, I don't think we should be risking money just to prevent it from being an open field, personally. I don't know how the others feel about that, but
Well, the one problem with the open field is that doesn't increase the increment that you would regain in the TIF district. That's more true of something outside of a TIF district. In the TIF district.
but isn't what already is built, isn't that sufficient to
But the
recapture
more, but in your overall TIF district, any undeveloped part reduces that increment that's going to increase.
Plus, then, if we continue on the current path in 5-6 years, if we don't get an extension, those funds that are being generated will be generated for the school district.
Yeah, to go all the taxing bodies.
Right, the
Yeah.
school districts, the fire protection districts,
Library,
right.
park districts.
So in theory, by getting additional increment built up in that division there, that subdivision, we're holding the line on property taxes. Even though we don't collect a property tax, we're providing additional income to these other taxing bodies. So in theory, it'll help cap or reduce the amount of increase, I guess, that you'll see in property taxes for those other taxing bodies. The
As
one
long
other
as the-
point, just if I may add, the $670,000 that we contributed to the TIF fund as an initial starting point that's required by law, I look at that as money that we spent as a village to, in fact, improve what I considered was a blighted area, which included Psychic Mary and all the other crap.
It was scattered site zoning at its finest.
Yes, sir.
I mean, it was a dump right there.
So
Not to mention a septic.
while I would like to get the $670,000 back, currently, we're estimating maybe we can pay off $170,000, give or take, reduce our investment initially to $500,000.
Yeah.
I don't have a problem with that from a philosophical standpoint, so.
Yeah, okay, well, so bring back the townhomes, or start the ball rolling.
I guess this consensus would be that the board overall would prefer our
Like low, we don't like high.
go with less density
Right.
and less requirement in terms of TIF.
With emphasis on the word less. 'cause
No,
agree with
I understand it
Trustee
fully.
Oppenheim, the
I
lower
do
the
want to
better.
tell trustee Oppenheim, because you were not present, When we got involved at that intersection, I think the village president will tell you that the village did not want to tap into its borrowing powers to acquire 7 acres. It had to be acquired in order for this to be done. I was fortunate enough at the time to have a line of credit that allowed me to loan the $7.5 million to the village. And that allowed this whole area to be redeveloped.
Did you live here back then, Doctor? I mean, do you know what that corner looked like?
My office is right across the street.
Well, I know it is, but were you living here when it was?
Oh, yeah, I've been here,
His house.
Well, that
been
started,
here a long time.
yeah,
Yeah, I
that
remember,
goes back
I looked
20
out at Psychic Mary from my window, from my
Oh,
office,
you were right across the street?
literally across the street.
Yeah.
Oh, not in the, okay.
Yeah, Literally,
Right.
yeah, I'm on the east side of Milwaukee
Yeah.
there.
He's
All
right
right.
across
So-
the street. But it was a very, I mean,
Well,
I know the property.
I think suffice it to say, I've gotten your basic direction as to what you want done. We'll be back to you very promptly. We'll take the plan through staff comments, hopefully quickly. We'll come back to you with a detailed economic projection, and hopefully we can have that all done in 30 days.
yeah, okay.
Thanks for your time.
All right,
Okay,
take
thanks.
care, Si.
Thank you.
Margie, you want to say anything? Yeah, all right, goodbye. You're welcome. Okay, short-term, no, targeted short-term,
Short.
yeah, short-term rentals.
Short-term rentals.
Who's here for this one?
Mr. Mayor, real quickly, this is information that was included in the board's packet previously. The village recently became aware of a property on Royal Burkdale and Greg's Landing that was being used for short-term rental. They were marketing their house on Airbnb as the platform to have the short-term rental. We contacted the owners through our code enforcement officer and advised them that this was not permitted by the zoning code and asked that use stop. In subsequent conversations with the owners, they requested that they could appear before the board to discuss short-term rentals. And as a reminder for everyone, the board considered this topic at its meeting in July of 2016, and at that time, the board determined that the zoning prohibition on short-term rentals should remain in place. But per the request of the owners, Asma Ahmad is here to discuss short-term rentals as it pertains to their property and in terms of zoning regulations. And I'll turn it over to them.
Great. Thank you very much for your time, ladies and gentlemen.
Can you state your name for the record, please?
My name is Masood Ahmed. This is my wife, Asma Ahmed.
And what's your address?
And we are both residents of 1879 Royal Burkdale Drive in Vernon Hills.
Okay.
We're here, unlike most other people, when they come here and ask the village for money, we're hopefully here to give the village some ideas as to how the village could potentially generate some revenue.
A segue, oh, okay.
A segue,
Oh, I
exactly.
catch on, okay.
So, just for the record, we're both 26-year residents of Vernon Hills. We actually raised 3 children who went through Vernon Hills High School. One's graduated college, one's in college, and one's a senior in high school. So we're at a point in our life where we're starting to think about, being empty nesters. Should we, downsize, sell our house? And it so happens that, 2 of my neighbors who are selling the homes right next to me are right here in the audience. And you could probably talk to them about the challenges of selling home without a, third or fourth one competing against them. So when we discussed this last summer, we said, we're spending a lot of our time down in the city. Property is vacant. Do we sell it? Do we do something else? So we said, let's see if, doing a short-term rental will help us defray some of the costs. We hold on to the property and continue to live here and enjoy it, okay? So we started that. The experience has been wonderful. It's an upscale property, as you probably know the neighborhood. The type of people that are being attracted there are families, upscale families. This is not something that we do 365 days a year. It's typically something for about maybe 4 to 8 weeks in the summer. And we've had some really good success. So one of the things that we learned as part of this experience was the people that were coming when they're coming to an upscale property like this, they're typically bringing pretty fat wallets with them. So we saw them.
Does that mean they have a lot of money?
Absolutely.
Oh.
And we've
seen
witnessed
it,
with our
yeah.
eyes the way they have spent. I mean, there was a family from China one week, there was a family from Mexico attending a graduation at Northwestern another week. And the spending that they did in terms of retail, restaurants, everything was pretty obvious to us.
I got to tell you one thing up front here. You got to understand is, if we were to say okay to Airbnb, it wouldn't just be your house.
Absolutely.
So it could crap up all over town.
Absolutely.
Which I don't know if most residents would be that sparky about it if you got the partiers. you know?
Absolutely.
Okay,
And
just so
I-
you know that.
I understand.
So this isn't just a hearing for you.
Sure.
This is
Right.
something that we would have to take into consideration for the whole town.
Yeah.
Okay.
And again, I don't think this is something the village needs to do from scratch. Other villages have actually implemented this. I mean, you know, since we spoke with Mike Atkinson, when people contact us, we say, sorry, we don't have permission from the village, but I'll refer you to this place in Chicago or to this friend in Schaumburg. They both have ordinances that allow, and 9 out of 10 times, those people end up in Schaumburg. So at the end of the day, I think it's something that the village has to address, but it's not something that I think you can say, oh my God, I don't want to touch this, right? So the village really has to look at this and say, do I want to be open and look at what's coming down the future?
It's the future.
Or do I want to just push the crowd away to other suburbs? Because really, they're not just looking at Vernon Hills, right? They're looking at the suburbs of Chicago. So with that, I think what we're ready here is for you to reconsider the village zoning ordinance. Again, I'm not asking you to reinvent the wheel. You can look at Schaumburg, for example. They have some restrictions, like you can't rent for more than, I think, 60 days in a year. I mean, you don't want to have boarding houses, and you don't want to have people coming in and out. So certain, smart rules and regulations. You already have rules and regulations around noise control and, disturbance in the neighborhood. You could leverage that. And basically, you're bringing in revenue with no incremental cost to the schools, to law enforcement, and other places. Obviously, you're going to have to control the type of properties, and you're probably going to have some enforcement of codes and zoning and so on. But, with that, I'm going to hand it over to my wife if you'd like to listen to more details.
So we just prepared a presentation as to our own experience. Having been avid users of Airbnb when we traveled, this was the first summer we actually had an opportunity to host. So we have experience from both ends. So we just wanted to share our experience with you as far as like safety concerns, all of those things. How did we navigate this? So like my husband said, we have an apartment in the city, so we spent most of our summer there, so we opened up our home. And typically we noticed two groups basically rented our place. One was people specifically not looking for hotels. They wanted a family, like a home where they could have a meal, play board games, and kind of have a family reunion. So that was, I would say, 8 out of the 10 families. And the second was professional groups. Like we had 8 men staying for the BMW championship, and they wanted to be on the golf course. And then you could see that everybody had such a positive experience. If you see our listing, everyone has had a great experience. But we wanted to share it from our point of view. So one of the concerns would be like, how do we make sure about the type of people entering the neighborhoods, right? Like safety concerns. So more than anyone, obviously, we're invested in everything we have. That's the asset we built. So we want to make sure that we completely check out the people that are renting our place, because it is, after all, our personal home. So we have very specific and elaborate house rules. We have a video cameras that we can monitor at all times as to who's coming on the property. Are they violating any parking codes? Is there noise? Because it's a two-way camera, we can hear the noise. So even though there's like street parking allowed, we don't allow street parking. We limit the parking so that, just precautionary measures, so there's no issues with the neighbors or noise, whatever. So you can see that's a snapshot of our doorbell. So anytime, no matter where we are, I can see how many cars are on my driveway and if there's any noise coming out of there, who's coming in and out of the front door. And you can see the people booking the property have to agree to all of these house rules. And we have very strict house rules: no smoking, no drugs, no pets, no parties, no noise after 10 p.m. Even though street parking is allowed, we say no parking on the street. So they can only book this property if they agree to our house rules, and we're pretty strict about enforcing this. So let's talk about the benefits. What does this do to the city? What has it done for us? And like Masood said, we've experienced it firsthand. All of the trays of food that they cater from fancy restaurants, the bottles of wine, the shopping bags left behind in recycling when they leave. And I can safely say, I think from the 15 families that came here, they've spent over 30 grand in Vernon Hills. I was just shocked because if you think about it, like,
So they give you their receipts?
no, but you can see like all the big shopping, like Rolex watch boxes, things people took back to China, like really expensive stuff, right? Because if they can afford to pay this much per night, then, obviously they have a lot of buying power.
Okay, that's,
So, and they've stayed for like 10 days and 13 days at $700 a night, right? So think about how much money they're coming in with. And then all the food, the golf course, and you can see in the reviews that they've visited all of these attractions, and then they always say that it's great shopping, it's great restaurants in Vernon Hills, and we'll come to that in a minute. And if you think about it, residents don't really do these things, right? I mean, we're all busy with our day-to-day lives, going to work, coming. Once in a while, we go shopping, no big deal. But visitors, they are in that vacation mode, so they're the ones looking to spend at Vernon Hills. Just the way when we go on a vacation, we like to go.
it's like nice to know we're a destination.
What's that?
I said it's nice to know we're a destination.
Yeah.
Okay.
So we were very concerned about the letter that we received for the cease and desist because we've talked to other people that rent on Airbnb, and apparently we are the only ones that singled out for this and for having no issues. So I was really wanted to see what the complaint was. So I went to the police department, and there was no complaint filed. So I have no idea where they got that from. I'm still curious to see who complained and what the validation for that complaint was, because I did go visit the police department to make sure we were not, like there was no parking violation, and apparently there wasn't. And you can see from the reviews,
Oh, it's not an allowed use.
right, we weren't aware of just because everybody was doing it in Vernon Hills, right? So that's how became aware of the situation.
All right.
Yeah, I mean, really, if you go there, you'll
Well,
probably
there's
see
There's
at least
95
30
homes
or
that come
40
up in
listings.
Vernon Hills. So you can stop one, how are you gonna, next year there's gonna be 30 more, right? So unless we have a regulation in place, how are we gonna go after everyone?
Well, again, it's,
We also don't
Well-
stop everyone that speeds on Butterfield Road, but we attempt to do our best.
No, we understand, but that's the
besides
whole,
the point.
yeah.
I mean, if we have to adopt an ordinance to approve this or not to approve it, then there'll be citations. There'll be like money exchanging hands every time somebody rents out to somebody if we have to enforce that. Which,
Can I ask Mike what the number of instances he's worked on
I'm sorry, number of instances for
that you've been in with Airbnb?
For short-term rental, this is the first one we became aware of this year, and subsequent to finding this out, we started doing some research on Airbnb. We found 16 other sites in Vernon Hills that are operating as Airbnb, and pending board's direction otherwise, we'll be sending the same notice to those same 16 other sites that we identified. It's a little tricky because on Airbnb, they don't indicate the exact address, but we can determine they're in Vernon Hills, and then we'll have to follow up from there.
Thank you.
And just to wrap up, you can see all of the cities that allow for Airbnb, and Chicago is also on the list here. So long-term, we think from our experience that we need to have proper guidelines in place, so maybe have special permit use, if that's the way the board wants to go, maybe develop policies that, allow for annual inspections and, have parking and all of those things implemented. But honestly, I don't see why not, because it's ultimately bringing buying power into Vernon Hills. We're building all of these new malls, and people here aren't spending that kind of money. And Airbnb seems to be an easy platform to get all of these visitors, because why else would they visit Vernon Hills? There's shopping malls everywhere. There's better restaurants outside of Vernon Hills. But this is an easy way to attract those customers because of our homes listed here. And we've kind of experienced that firsthand, so that's what we wanted to share with you. That short term, we'd be allowed to continue our listing until a proper policy is in place as far as what the board would like to consider from here on.
So really, I mean, if the board would decide to move ahead with considering this, we're happy to work with the board as a pilot project to see if it makes sense to the village. You don't have to necessarily pass an all-out ordinance. You could probably say, let's try this as a pilot project for 3 months, 6 months, whatever that term is, or even if it's 3 weeks, right? So you can get some learnings rather than just blatantly go out and say, well, you know, I really don't care about this, because basically at that point, you're just pushing business away into the other suburbs.
Trustee Schultz.
Thank you.
Based on your 30,000, that means we garnered the princely sum of $300.
Well, again, I mean, I don't know, is 30?
I'm not being argumentative, I'm just stating a fact. I am no way in favor of this.
It's fine. I mean, it's up to the village, because at the end of the day,
I'm a
This is you're right, you're in the right place to get an answer,
absolutely.
potentially tonight. This is the place.
I am a homeowner in a single-family house in a neighborhood that probably would be desirable to have Airbnb, and I could probably rent my house out because I have my second residency in northern Wisconsin, so I'm away at times, but I have no desire to do that, nor do I have any desire to let my neighbors do that. I
Like,
have
can I understand
no
why?
desire. Pardon?
I mean, what is your logic behind this?
From my personal
Well, yours is a
standpoint-
profit motive.
Right.
Okay,
Yeah, and I
All right.
don't have a profit need.
yeah.
And I have something to say. I'm one of the currently.
Can you identify yourself, give us your address, so and so
Peter
forth?
Lin and then 33 Mentally Drive, Vernier. Mentally
Okay.
Drive. Okay, I have some different, I mean, situation is similar, but the difference is I live there. Okay, I have my kids go to the college, one is go to work. So I'm living alone. Okay, I was thinking sell my house, just say, hey, move to some. But the problem with that is when my kids get home, they don't have a place to stay. So they have to stay hotel. So, and also in this area, like close to 30 years, I would prefer, if possible, I have a, home and a yard, and you can enjoy something. So my situation is I prepare my house for sale, actually, maybe next year or so. I'm looking for the market. And then my kids say, why don't you think, if we can help? Because I was thinking after my kids graduate college, I will take some part-time job, so I don't need to very stressful with my current job.
The kids will start paying for everything?
Well,
that's
I
great.
still need to pay the tuition right now. Okay, after tuition, my thing is I don't pay a lot. I have some saving. I take a part-time job. That I don't have, very, go to work.
Yeah, now, which subdivision are you in?
What subdivision?
Where do you live?
Where do you live? I mean, what,
Oh.
do you live next to you guys?
No.
or-
It's on the Deer Pass, near the Deer Pass over there.
Yeah, in Deerfield.
Yeah, it's not far from.
Yeah, okay, it's all right. It's where I live.
Yeah, so I just tried this year, since May, okay? You may not see anything like on the market. The thing is, two guys, from the medical school, they come here to the residential practice for 3 months. They rent my room, 2 people for like less than $50 for all day, everything. So they basically like 3 months, right? So to me, it's kind of the supplement income. I'm not trying to make a living to this one because, hey, my calculation is if I just rent my house, well, probably much more than just do an Airbnb separately. Because, hey, the market is not there on the Vernon Hill. My understanding, when I started, May, Airbnb suggests, say, you rent a room for the house for like $35. They suggest to say, hey, man, who's going to do that? So I'm saying, let's try. So I put the $50 for a night for 2 rooms. Okay, you can have like increase a little bit if you more people. I only have like a rental 1. I'm not separated these 2 rooms. So the people coming, I did see a very nice person. So far, I just open to anybody. I have a so-called instant book, so you don't need to get my permission. You can just book. So far, I have some local guy, the moving, but the house is not ready, so temporarily live here. some college students visit, Chicago, visit Navy Field, visit, Army base. And then some people for business trip, they extend the visit Chicago, they stay a couple more days. Some retail people, they originally living, Libertyville, they come back and visit, so they spend a couple times. So I'm not, before this 3 months, only just a weekend people come in. So market is not really there. I mean, you don't need to worry. A lot of people are, who's going to do 35 bucks? If I had kids live home, I'm not going to do it. But in my situation, if I cannot do this, I probably want to sell this one and move to, maybe Gurney or some other place, because, hey, everything is so expensive. The property tax is more than double the last 20 years here. All this, expense, income tax, as everybody knows, just increased like 5% this year. Sales tax, health insurance, all this utility bill, you gotta pay, and you gotta have working hard for a job. So if my only one, it's doesn't make sense. So to me, it's if you guys, want to, paying this, short-term lending, I probably.
Well,
I'm gonna lose the house here.
Yeah,
so.
okay, Mike, is it time to talk about boarding houses?
Well, that's part of, that was I gonna say, that's part of the problem. You notice now, he's talking about months at a time. And
Yeah.
and it's, yeah, exactly. Once you open the door, then you have hotels in every neighborhood.
And again, this is what we're saying, right? You
But
have
you're
to
saying he
basically
shouldn't be
learn-
allowed to do 2-3 months.
Learn from what other villages
Okay,
have
but
done.
are you
So-
saying no to him, but yes to you?
No, I'm not saying that. I'm saying establish rules.
Well, the established
that are
rules were a
uniform.
certain number of days, and he's already said going beyond that.
No, that's just it's a special situation. I have some
Because-
government contract that they take a
I
contract.
understand that.
with you.
Yours is a special situation, his is more special, and then
not-
my neighbor's is more special.
Now,
On and on and on.
And in
Okay.
my neighborhood, where there's only a one-car garage with one car on the pad, my neighbor wants to let 6 guys stay or 5 guys stay. There's no place for them.
That's where all the
Okay, but so we tell you it's okay because you live in the high-end neighborhood, but my neighbors can't do that because we could,
It depends on the size of the
Again,
house,
I
right?
don't want to get
Right.
into an
So
argumentative
I
position here.
think it
Yeah.
don't need to take it individually. I'm just saying, I would just prefer, instead of, say you are forbidden to do this, why don't you guys, do some research or welcome to live in my house too, to see what's the situation, and then why don't you just put some like rule, instead of just say everybody follow. If you are violating the rule 2 times, you're out. You're forbidden, to do this business. I mean, I would prefer that way instead of, the things are gonna change. The technology-wise, people-wise.
Yeah.
I do see a benefit both, consumer side, even though Bernie here, if you say the revenue is that big, but hey, it's bringing people over. They spend the money here. They spend the money eating, transportation, all this.
Right, okay, which is, unsubstantiated.
Yeah.
So
All
all I'm
right,
gonna-
trustee Markwart.
Yeah, I'm not for it.
Mike.
Yes. It's on. I'm not for it. Short-term, long-term, no, I'm not for it. I'll give you an example of an incident that probably just happened to us here in Vernon Hills. A gentleman rented a room in Mundelein, came to our village, went to Target, saw that we have where the police department was, wanted to commit suicide, goes in there, pulls a gun on a police officer. Luckily, our police officer shot the man in the hand. That was a rental, one-room rental. No, I don't see it in this town, and I vote no for it.
Okay, any other trustees who want to comment on this?
Yeah,
Trustee Takio.
yeah, your slide here, cities that allow Airbnb, I think this pretty much, it's not even, this apples and oranges, right? Maui, Miami Beach, you're talking big metro destination areas. This is Vernon Hills, family community. I don't know how your neighbors feel, but I know in my neighborhood, I don't think I'd want people coming in and out
And
from,
neighbors may
I'm just
not
giving you
want
my
We'll
opinion.
get to, you
I'm
give
just
me
giving you
that.
my
That's
perspective here, and
Count Pointer.
this slide right here just doesn't help you. A college town, Madison, I get that. Lexington, yeah, my daughter's in Lexington. I mean, it's,
I think we're in the same position as where we are when Menards wanted to come in town, right? So you have to
look.
make what's the best decision for the village and then go from there, because that's what
Right.
your role is.
But this
And if-
slide
and
didn't
What
help.
is an
either way, you go
incredible
one way or
leap
the
in
other.
logic.
Absolutely correct. We have to do what's best for the
Absolutely. And
village.
we're not going to
correct.
tell you one
And
way or the
the
other.
300 people
you
that have
don't wanna
already told me
argue,
no,
right?
but that's okay.
You don't want to be argumentative?
No.
And quite honestly, I've had a bunch of people approach me on this, and they're just like, Craig, I hope you're not in support of this. And this is the community. This isn't about Craig's opinion. I'm an advocate for the community. I must have had about 20 people say, Craig, are we really considering this for Vernon Hills? And I'm like, well, we have to hear them out. Absolutely.
Well,
But
yeah.
that's what I'm going
Well,
to say.
and we addressed this, what, over a year
And you guys
ago?
did it a year ago,
Yeah,
so.
And we said no.
That's correct.
Okay, but you weren't the people, were they the same people that came in?
Well, we just, we became aware of it. It was,
What-
and because
Yeah, we have-
they were not the same people that
Yeah,
came.
yeah, yeah. Maybe I read an article in the Sun-Times. Everybody reads the Sun-Times now, don't they? Okay, thanks. In essence, what do you want to say, ma'am?
Are you aware that there?
Can you,
Want to state your name for the record, please?
Okay, I'm pro Airbnb, I'm pro shared economic
Your name is?
platforms.
Want to state
My
your
name is
for the record?
Trish Havern. I do not live in this town. But I want you aware that there is a Senate bill out there that removes the power of municipalities and cities to ban Airbnb and to ban short-term renting. It is out there now.
In
I think
Illinois or-
it's 1735, I think it's called
In
SB.
Illinois?
In Illinois.
Okay.
I want you aware of that.
Okay.
Also, if I could just point out a few things, I'd really appreciate just taking a few minutes. I'm not sure what the difference is in renting 7 days or a month. And month-to-month terms are very common. And the people who come do the same things a resident would do. You know, they cook dinner, or they go out to dinner, or they watch TV, families, all different types. I've had such quality people, I can't even speak enough about that. My home is a 2-flat in East Lake Bluff. It was built as a 2-flat. I live on the first floor. It is our retirement. The person who was in there before was a long-term tenant. Friends with the neighbors, big brother, big sister, volunteer, churchgoer, and he was a convicted pedophile. The house was raided, and he's serving 40 years. You don't know who's coming in. You can't have the control and the vetting that you have with shared economic platforms.
What do you mean?
All right.
Pedophile crazy, it's online.
are you,
I'm sorry, what?
It's online if somebody's a pedophile and they've been convicted.
I'm saying the house was raided. I'm sorry, I didn't
Oh,
make myself
no,
clear.
you
This
did-
was before I lived there.
Okay,
so are you,
The- it was
okay,
like-
but
so I'm
if you're worried somebody's a pedophile, you can go online. Chief,
I'm-
you want to address that?
Oh, I'm sorry, what's my?
The chief of police.
Yes, Mr. Mayor, all sex offenders are required to register both locally, that goes up on a state
Right.
database. Anyone can access that.
All right, that was 1970s, that was before I bought the house.
Yeah, okay.
I was
Well,
making a
We're
point
just
that,
trying to
Can
bring you
I-
up to speed, okay?
can I interject real quick? Did you say you're pro Airbnb or are you against it?
I am pro Airbnb.
And you're suggesting that there's pedophiles living in
And
short-term
I'm
rental places?
suggesting that the
And that's helpful.
long-term tenant who was in my building before I moved there, the neighbors didn't know. And now the police chief has pointed out that there is records that you can find out. There wasn't at that time. I guess my point is, I feel safer getting these short-term tenants in. I've had double PhDs come in, working for Abbott on contract. I could use Craigslist. I could use other sources that don't vet as well. You know, there's plenty of summer people. I had the head of the yacht club, Yokel Yacht Club, that moved to Florida, can't come up and stay for a month. I mean, it's great. What's the difference between a month and 7 days? But whatever. And I just ask that you consider why people do it. It's a lot of work. The four people that were doing it in our small town for the last 2 or 3 years with absolutely no complaints. One was a woman who volunteered in our community, raised her 4 kids, head of the local museum, did a ton of good for the community. She had a beautifully restored Victorian she could not sell because it didn't fit the new family needs. And so she started renting it out at $500 a night to pay her $26,000 a year in taxes. She did it for 30 days. She brought in people for funerals, she brought in people that she knew, and there was no problem, and there was never a complaint. The next person was a widow who lost her husband the year before. She took care of her mother, worked full-time.
Yeah, you want to slow down, please? Because we don't need to know the history of everybody that you rented
All right.
a room to.
No, this
We
isn't
have-
who
we
I
have
rented.
some
All right,
other things
whatever.
on the agenda
Yeah, but I
tonight,
mean,
so.
what?
The
We have
reason
other
I
agenda
mention
items.
it is only so you know that it's a lot of work. It's not like something everybody's going to take on. And the middle class is getting squeezed, and this is a way of a shared economy.
Okay, it's like Lake Bluff's got that ordinance in place, you're good.
Oh, that's another thing. Oh, no. Actually, a lot of these local communities don't have ordinances,
Right.
but they still allow it, just so you know.
Oh, really?
Highland
Okay.
Park, Lake Forest,
So-
I can name a ton of
So it's
them.
like Lincoln, Blinken,
You're
and
sure
Knapp.
Lake
That's
Forest and Lake Bluff
exactly-
allow it?
I'd like to hear from a couple of people that have come that want to speak to this. You know, maybe the counterpoint. Or maybe they like it. Maybe they like the ideas. You want to identify yourself, please?
Sure. I'm Donnelly Bulkey. I live right next door, 1887 Royal Burkdale Drive.
Nancy Baker, 1895 Royal Burkdale Drive.
Pete Baker, I'm her husband.
Well, I didn't know that. You know,
No,
I can't
I
say I
know
know
that-
you personally, you know,
No,
so.
it's the same last name. I thought that might be.
Okay, but yeah, or maybe a sister.
No.
No, go ahead.
It's my wife. Okay, let me start, I guess. I've had the opportunity to witness this, and I found it interesting, some of the comments that were made. I do live next door, so although they may have very strict ordinances on what they can do in the building, like I watched as a number of people sat at the end of the driveway, probably because they couldn't smoke in the residence, decided to do that at the end of the driveway. I didn't find that particularly attractive, but that's just one of those things. The biggest concern I think that I have is when you see the turnover and the number of people in and out, it's really the safety. I think the home that they represent sleeps a number of people, and when a large number of people are going in and out, I don't know how you do a security check or a safety check on that. And so you really don't know who's coming out. And I don't think we're doing this for 7 days. I think the BMW is something very different. I think it's about 3 days on average probably that people are there. I guess I would ask the question for each of you. At your home, would you want someone next to you in and out every other day, different residents coming in, or different people coming in for that rental opportunity? It just doesn't fit well. I didn't buy in Greg's Landing for a rental property, and
Right.
it doesn't feel right for me to be able to do that.
So we got 3 against.
Well, yes, the one lady just had to leave because she had to take care of her children. She's on the other side. So, but I also did witness that, yes, I did call the police when there was somebody parked out inside of my, in front of my house, because I am right next door. My house is for sale. And it was parked there for, I was gone most of the summer, so it was parked there for a week when I got back. I did call the police. I did pursue with that. I also have witnessed several bonfires next door, several parties that have gone over midnight. So it hasn't been so nice and quiet like they
So the
said.
camera doesn't work that good?
No.
It does
Well,
not.
I don't know how that stops.
I don't know how that
Yeah.
stops, yeah.
Okay.
So thanks.
So-
Yes,
Okay.
I got it.
All right, anybody else want to speak to this on the board?
This addresses what most people have said to me.
Nobody?
No, I was going to say, your concerns is what, I agree with what trustee Takaoka said, that people have come up to me, not us, not a single person has come up and said, this is a great idea, we really need this in town. It's been exactly the opposite.
All right, does anybody want to make a motion to,
I guess, what is Mike Atkinson looking for?
Well, if,
Because we have some
excuse me.
regulations.
Currently, the zoning code prohibits this type of use. So if the board wishes to continue that prohibition, then no further action is needed.
well, why don't we lay this out for public consumption, what the ordinance speaks to?
Sure.
Or do we need to put an ordinance in to give us enforcement rights to stop this practice?
Well, under the
I mean, Chief, what do you think? I mean,
Yeah, I think what you're suggesting makes sense. We've had this discussion if, I don't know if Mike is prepared to just hit the high points of the current prohibition? Is that what the mayor's calling for?
the zoning.
well, what I'm asking is, okay, is there, and I'll bring Pat into this, without specificity in the ordinance, can we fine?
Yes.
It's already covered in the zoning ordinance, and it would be like any other zoning violation that we
Okay.
could pursue and prosecute.
Okay, hold on.
So the answer to your question is yes. If
Okay,
they're
but do we need to establish like a ceiling and a floor?
on the fine range,
Yeah.
it would,
I can answer that. It's between $100 and $1,000.
in the fine schedule.
And each day constitutes a separate offense.
Okay.
Okay, so
So, and how would that be enforced? It has to be brought up that it happened, and that would be...
By residents that honestly see something.
Well-
And you can't rely on the police all the time to be at a doorstep. Actually, it's individuals like you, like me, like the board, that end up seeing things and you report them.
See something, say something.
And
You should patent that.
and that's the best way to do it. I mean,
Okay.
we end up,
Okay.
every bit helps.
well,
And Mike, you continue to monitor Airbnb's
can,
website and any other subsequent websites to
That's
try
correct.
and ascertain specific locations?
That's correct, and we've
like the
identified.
16 that you're going to send
Yeah,
out
we've
letters
identified
to?
16 other properties, and we'll be
can I add a couple?
figuring out who the owners are, and
on.
we'll be sending notification to those properties to cease and desist the short-term rentals.
Okay, so one thing, okay, before I come here, I mean, I did check the code, whatever, okay. So there's some question, but the question shall not come and say against it, because, hey, I'm have the first, expense, For me, if you didn't allow, I'm just selling my house, I mean, but hey, I do have a first-hand expense so far, right? So one thing is not clear is, it say you shall not using your house as a short-term, I mean, no residential, type of, activity. Well, that is all its own way, okay? But hey, what is short-term? What is no residential? Okay, so to me, is people come here, let's say people stay for more than a week. Are you allowed it? It's short-term? Short-term 30 day, 1 week? It's not clear, so-called short-term. Okay, right now, because I said, the people leaving my house for 3 months, that's different than not short-term, it's what, I mean, all this. Secondly, all this, anybody doing this business, or even a renter, it's not short-term. They all have these kind of things. So we have this company, you guys, I mean, I understand the show concept A. I don't think it's a good idea, but hey, you have the problem, you should have a solution or regulation to address this problem. That is how we pay everybody's, office to manage this, instead of
Yeah,
just say,
okay. Well,
I
here,
against it.
There's nothing you're gonna say tonight to change our minds.
No, I'm not
Okay?
changing my
And
show.
but I
like
think
you said.
we will communicate through whatever, electronic media we have and, put everybody on notice.
Yes,
It's-
so
It's advertising.
my suggestion.
And then, in essence, you're gonna suffer the consequences if we come by and cite you. So, we can fine.
Well, that's
You can,
fine,
Ken?
but just say, for
And-
me, I want
yeah, I
to
know.
know,
Okay.
right? Just say, want to know.
I'm telling you, this discussion's done for tonight, because we gotta bring Target up here, so. Sorry, okay, trustee Oppenheim.
Yeah, I just want to make one final comment. So thank you, Mahmoud and Asma, for bringing this to our attention. I'm kind of torn on it to some extent, and I appreciate the idea at least, because I've been thinking about, how am I going to afford these ever-increasing taxes over the year? But unfortunately, it is the ordinance, and it was an ordinance violation. And many of us did not necessarily move here to have short-term renters next door to us. And like Trustee Takaoka said, I've also heard from various people saying that that's not what they're looking for. So as much as it sounds like a great idea to me in many respects, I'm just not sure that the community is really ready for that. But maybe in the future, as things change, we might reconsider.
Okay. Okay. Request from Target for approval of facade renovations and landscape revisions at 313 Town Line Road.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. What'll come up in front of you, right in front of you there in the screen, is a picture of what Target looks like right now.
Yeah.
And here represents what Target is proposing to upgrade their facade. The existing ephes would be painted with earth tone colors as shown on the screen in front of you. They would also be installing simulated wood panels that would be installed on portions of the front elevation. The front elevation is the elevation at the top of your screen there. Those wood panels would be installed at each corner on the east and west side of the building, also over the main entrances, and then finally behind the main Super Target sign at the central location of the building. The existing wall signage would also be updated. The signs on the front elevation would essentially remain unchanged. The Super Target grocery and order pickup signs would be changed from red to white. The size would otherwise remain the same. The variation that the board granted for the bullseye would remain the same except for the color change. And the pharmacy sign, though, that would remain red. They are also proposing new signage on the east and west elevations. Those signs would fully comply with the sign code. There's frontage on both elevations, so they can have signage there that's no larger than 50% of the allowable area on the north facade. Target, it's difficult, this picture is a little more difficult to read, but Target is also proposing to revise the landscaping in that green space between the east side of the building and Fairway Drive. There's some overgrown evergreen trees that are in some state of well, they're in poor shape. There's also some trees that are dead in that area. They'd be removing all that and then installing low-level landscaping, and the purpose of that obviously is to open up the view corridor from Fairway Drive. Our landscape technician has taken a first look at that plan. Further review will be needed, but this is pretty close to what Target is requesting.
And of course, the berm is, what, 10 feet high or?
Yeah, oh yeah, they're pretty tall.
It's a good,
Yeah,
okay, go ahead.
and then there's half-dead evergreens on top of that. So for tonight, if the committee feels that the facade renovation and landscape revisions are appropriate, then staff should be directed to prepare an ordinance approving those changes, subject to the conditions that are outlined in your packet, and representatives of Target and the design team is here to answer any questions that you may have.
Just hold the phone. Trustee Cook.
Well, I think this is an improvement to the building, and I like the way you phrase it as a refreshment, as a frequent flyer. I think everything I see here improves the whole look of the building and that, so I'll make a motion to direct staff to prepare the appropriate ordinance?
Prepare an ordinance.
Yeah.
Approving the facade renovations and landscape revisions as presented to you tonight and in accordance with the conditions outlined in your packet.
So said.
So there's a motion and a second. Comments or questions?
Are you going to do anything on the inside of the store?
Yes, as a matter of fact, I'm Jay Richardson. I'm from RSP Architects in Minneapolis. And yes, they're planning a renovation of the interior.
And this gentleman, you might as well identify yourself.
Absolutely. Good evening. My name's Andy Heinen. I'm with Kimley Horn and Associates, located at 1001 Warrenville Road in Lisle, Illinois. We're the development manager.
Okay.
And is this a corporate-wide color change, or is this just something specific to the store?
The colors are chosen store by store. And I'm not going to say that these colors aren't used on some other store, but this is an individual store.
You're going to paint the balls a different color?
They're going to be red.
Same color? They are now?
Yeah.
That's all right, you know. In fact, you might want to add more so nobody drives into the store. I didn't say that. Okay, there's a motion and a second. Any other comments or questions? If not, roll call.
Trustees Schultz.
Aye.
Markwart.
Aye.
Cook.
Aye.
Oppenheim.
Aye.
Takaoka.
Aye.
Hebda.
Motion carries. Welcome to the meeting. Have a nice time.
Thank you very much.
Remodeling and
one of the easiest
refurbishing.
approvals I think of
Is there a
ever.
motion?
Thank you.
Is there a motion to adjourn committee to hold?
So made.
Second.
Motion and a second. Roll call.
Trustees Markwart.
Aye.
Cook.
Aye.
Oppenheim. Takaoka.
Aye.
Hebda. Schultz.
Aye.
Motion carries. Thank you and good night.
Thank you very much.
Okay. And you're from Minneapolis, you said?
Yes, I am.
And you work for an architectural firm?
Yes, RSP Architects.
Okay.
However, I am from Minneapolis.
Yeah?
However, I was born in Libertyville.
Oh,
and-
my God.
And I lived in Mundelein until I was 6, and we moved, then we moved to Gurnee. Well, if he swam at Loch Lomond, I was probably there. If he swam at Loch Lomond Beach,